Thank you very much for joining me today. The first question that I like to ask the guests on this podcast is if you could just please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do, both of you.
Well, I'm Jackie Knechtel. I'm the co-founder of the FlowConsciousness Institute, and this is my business partner, Justin Faerman. And we have online and in-person training programs that are really in-depth ways to reprogram your consciousness to eliminate all of the things that keep you stuck in unnecessary struggle and suffering. So reprogramming limiting beliefs, emotional patterns, traumas, things like that, and really programming in a reality of infinite possibilities where everything you want and need to thrive in life comes to you effortlessly in perfect synchronicity.
Oh, that sounds so good. Sorry, Justin. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm Justin.
I want some of that, please.
And I co-founded the Institute along with Jackie. And I'll add my 2 cents in on how I would describe it. I like to describe it as we give people new operating systems for their minds that allow them to become limitless and to really live in an expanded reality of flow and get life to start conspiring in their favor instead of being a struggle and an endless series of what ifs. When is the rug going to get pulled out? What if there was just the most beautiful Persian rug taking you up to all the things that you wanted at all times? So,
how did you both come to do this and to be working together and get into this work?
It's been a kind of a twisty, windy journey. Our paths are very different. Mine was really initiated into the mystery school of life and just kind of taken on this path of facing tremendous challenges and trauma in my life. So overcoming some challenges like the death of my brother, which kind of was a huge catalyst for me to go on this profound healing journey. I left everything in my life behind and went on a trip around the world for a year, which was really life-changing in so many ways and kind of the foundation for what we're teaching now, really just kind of synthesizing all of the best tools and practices that helped me on my healing journey. And the way I was describing it, I was introduced to Justin because he was teaching very similar things, and it was really uncanny, but from a very different path.
Yeah, my journey into flow started when I was really young because my parents thankfully didn't program me with a lot of beliefs about what I needed to be or do. And so I kind of just defaulted to doing the things that felt good to me and were exciting. And so that journey eventually led me to getting mentored by someone who was really a master of living in this kind of way, although he didn't call it flow. And through working with him and getting to just kind of peek into his reality, I got fascinated with all the incredible things that were possible when you live like this. And then that sent me on about a 6 or 7 year journey to understand the mechanics of it, because I'm not an engineer by training, but I like to understand how things work. I like to understand what's going on, the science and all that stuff. And so, so I spent 6 years, deep diving into all of it and figuring out the mechanics of it. And then that's about when my path synced up with Jackie and we kind of combined forces and, now we do this for a living.
I love it. So I too am very interested in like the inner workings and like what things mean and how they work. So could you give us an overview for someone that's not too familiar with it, like the crux of flow?
Yeah. Well, there's two core aspects to getting into flow, what we call inner flow and outer flow. So inner flow is really this process of reprogramming yourself to become infinite.
Yes.
And in doing that, you're removing or erasing all of the things that are keeping you limited and stuck. And then 2, adopting the mindsets, the perceptual frames, the behaviors, and so on and so forth that lock you into a reality where you start to experience flow regularly. And outer flow is all about what you're doing in the world, how you're making your decisions. It's about tracking flow in real time so that no matter what situation you're in, you always know the path of least resistance and highest success and impact for yourself.
This is I'm loving that we're having this conversation right now, because this whole year I decided to do that, just to lean into the direction that I was going in, sort of when I have a clear sort of download or whatever of this is a thing that you should be doing, like listening to that and then following that path, rather than before where I've been very adamant of like, I'm going to do this. And then I kind of just like go gung ho with it, and it doesn't always work out, and it's just exhausting. And it can get quite disheartening. And so this time I've been definitely trying to go with the flow and like be in flow. And it's cool. It's pretty damn cool. So with the changing beliefs and things like that, what are some of the ways that people can identify and sort of change their beliefs and habits or thoughts?
Yeah, so we teach a lot of different practices, and one is just this mindful questioning process and becoming aware of all of the programmed, conditioned perceptions and beliefs that we have about ourselves, about life, about the world around us, about other people, and just seeing how we've taken on all of these things from the media, from our culture, from religion, from, we've inherited from our ancestors epigenetically, all of these different ways that we have these lenses and perceptions of life that are limiting what shows up in our reality. So we can use our reality as a feedback mechanism to show us where we may be holding on to these limited perceptions and beliefs that are creating suffering and struggle. Mm-hmm. So by noticing when you're feeling triggered, or you have an emotional charge or a reaction to something, or if something's just not working the way you'd like it to in life, you can get curious about that and ask yourself simple questions, powerful questions like, what must I believe in order to be having this emotional experience or this experience in my life? What am I making this mean about me? And really drilling down to find out what those beliefs are. But what we've done is really kind of revolutionary in that we have cultivated these lists of the most insidious core beliefs that we found over the years of all of our clients, ourselves.
I wanted to ask that. What are the common ones that you see show up? So what are some of them?
We've really put together these comprehensive lists of the ones that really keep people back. And, everyone's got some flavor of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I don't belong, I'm separate. I'm
all alone is really common. A lot of people have really insidious beliefs around work and money, like I need to work hard to be successful, like all the things that you've heard throughout your entire life, no pain, no gain, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees. Someone just said this is a really insidious one in the personal development space. Someone said this to me yesterday. They're like, there's no breakthrough without a breakdown.
Oh yeah.
Or, yeah. And it's like all
programmed to think that you need the struggle in order to have these breakthroughs or, overcome your challenges to step into this new paradigm. Mm-hmm. And while that often is the case, and so much of my growth has come from that, I've adopted a new reality where I don't need challenge, I don't need struggle, I don't need to be in the hospital, which was part of my path, or to experience these traumatic things in order to shift into this new reality.
Yeah. It's so deeply ingrained in so many people. I forget, there's another term that people say about having to work hard for something. And I had a girlfriend the other day say it to me. She's just got a new job and she's trying to go out and get clients. And she's like finding it all very stressful. You have to work hard. You have to work hard, don't you? And in my mind, I was just like, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I had a friend years ago who said to me, you have to remember, I only work smart, not hard. And I was just like, oh, I love that. And it really shifted everything that I do around what's the easiest, effortless, like the ways that I can make money or do things that doesn't require me to be frazzled and tired. And like, yes, I'm not a lazy bum. I do stuff. I work, but I'm not, it's not every waking hour of the day and, don't get to have a social life or whatever. We can make those choices. So someone's identified that they've got all these beliefs. What are some of the things or some of the exercises that you run them through of switching it?
Yeah. So there's quite a big spectrum. So we call like introductory exercises and then more advanced ones that take a little bit of training to learn how to do them. So one of the ones that's easy to get started with is to basically first, once you've discovered a limiting belief, what you want to do is identify the positive belief that you need to shift into as the antidote to it. And not just the positive belief, but the most expansive version of that belief, right? So if someone has a limiting belief like, I need to work hard to be successful, what you typically do is you take the opposite of the limiting belief and then you kind of tweak it to make sure it's in its most expansive form, right? So for that belief, the opposite would be something along the lines of, I'm effortlessly supported in life at all times, right? Or, abundance flows to me effortlessly regardless of what I'm doing. And so these beliefs open you up into a reality where you are not creating any unconscious limits. And in fact, you're training your brain to start looking for that, because we all have confirmation bias, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
But it can work to your favor. People usually talk about it as a bad thing, but you can work it to your favor by training your brain and your mind to search for the things that are actually nourishing and supporting you. And so once someone has identified this positive belief, a good first step is to start taking an action on that belief, acting as if that belief is already true for you. How would you think? What would you do? How would you change your behavior if you were living from that place? Because the thing is that we typically, when we're operating unconsciously, we only take action on things that we already believe is true. So by bringing this into our conscious minds and saying, okay, now we're going to proactively take action on something, it sends a feedback loop into the brain, which starts to wire in that belief. And then once you have that belief start to get wired in, you start to see evidence for it, it starts to invalidate the old belief. And once the belief starts to get invalidated and it's not totally true anymore, then you've started that process.
Yeah, and it's kind of about bringing intentionality and consciousness to gathering evidence and looking for evidence of this new empowering belief, because we're so good at finding evidence to support and back up our limitation and to argue for those limitations. So, for example, when I lived in New York, when I was younger, all of the women would say, all men are dogs and, there are no good men. And, over a glass of wine, all the women would be commiserating and finding all of the stories on why, men are dogs and, just kind of reinforcing that narrative. So it's about catching yourself in an old limiting belief, and then choosing the upgrade and then actively searching for evidence that supports the new belief to really reinforce that new neural pathway.
I'm doing a big cheesy grin right now because I literally the other day caught myself, it was some point over this weekend, I caught myself saying, all the guys that I seen today, no one wants to commit to me. And then I started going through all the guys over the last couple of years that have not wanted to commit to me. And I was like, that's ridiculous. There's definitely plenty of guys that would want to commit to you. I just happen to not want to take things further with them. And then so I started thinking about other people that have committed to me. And it was just so funny because it's exactly what you're saying, that we have to catch ourselves. And it's just fascinating that my mind can go off on this little thing of see, there was that person and there was that person. And I started to feel upset and angry. And I'm like, why do we do this to ourselves? But Justin, I just want to go back to your point that you're given the example of instead of work, we have to work hard to be successful. And then you said you would change that belief to I'm effortlessly supported throughout my endeavors. And then you were saying to seek out examples of that or take action. For that specific one, someone's action could just be, well, then I'm just going to not do. What is an active action that you could do for that other than, I'm just effortlessly supported? Take it away.
Well,
bring it to me, universe.
I'm just going to sit with my arms folded now and wait.
Yeah, you can do that. Well, so this is where the outer flow comes in a bit too. So, some beliefs are more actionable than others. If you're doing something that's the opposite of I'm not good enough, well, there's things that you can do easily to affirm that you have worth or that you're good enough. You can stretch yourself into something. For things that are a little bit more abstract, like this one, this is where the outer flow comes in, and you start to bring in different tools, different principles. So there's 7 different principles that we teach. And one of the most important ones is really learning how to dial in and follow your intuition at really high levels and really masterfully. Because intuition is, a lot of people think that it's just this unconscious processing, that it's just, our subconscious mind. It's not. It's actually a quantum aspect of our own consciousness, like a supercomputer that we have that is basically processing all this data that we don't even realize that we're taking in, and figuring out what's the path of least resistance and highest success for us in life. So we learn to follow that really well, and we start to shift into these perceptual frames where we start to search for these things that are actually bring us into flow, and then use our intuition, which is naturally guiding us towards those things in general. Then you get this really powerful combination that gives you those experiences, that leads you to them. And what happens is you have them, you prove to yourself that it's true, and then that allows you to trust even more deeply and take bigger leaps and to continue to create this cycle that ultimately allows you to hit exponential growth and create really incredible things.
Very exciting.
Yes.
Go on, you can say something, Jackie.
Yeah, and it's a big part of flow is aligning with your passion and purpose. And so often we're living out of alignment with that because we're following all the shoulds that we get from society. You know, we get a job, you know, that we think our parents will be proud of us for, or, you know, we think we'll have safety and security in. So we're doing all of the things that are kind of not what we actually want to be doing, that are out of alignment with our passion and purpose, not really living into our genius and our gifts. And that creates a lot of suffering and this feeling of not being in flow. So being in flow is really acting on your excitement and your inspiration. So it's not that you're not doing anything and just waiting for the universe to give you gifts. It's really following your excitement in each moment and allowing that to be your compass and what's guiding you to what you actually want to be doing. But it's also going to show you all of the places where you're operating from these old patterns, whether it's people pleasing or, you know, operating out of fear or all of these other things rather than what's truly motivating you.
Right. And I think your answers sort of helped with what I was thinking, because Justin, you'd mentioned about sort of doing the things that lead you into this flow. And so from what Jackie was saying, that was like leaning into the things that you enjoy, like following your bliss, going out there and having experiences, rather than just, because that's sometimes what I worry about. I just feel, you know, I want this divine inspiration and this, you know, tell me what to do. And it doesn't always work. And so I guess you're saying just sort of being in the, doing the things that you love, and then that's when it comes. It's not not always like a constant.
I mean, it can be. That's the thing. This is where we get into like the advanced intuition. So like, you know, most people, there's a complete spectrum of mastery in intuitional capacity. So most people will wait for the hits. Like, okay, I'm going to wait for the hits. And those are always great because they're usually pretty clear and, you know, you feel it and it's powerful. But what do you do about all the other times during the day? Because what we teach is that you're following your intuition for every decision, right? Now it takes it to a whole new level. And so in those moments, you need to be able to really get an on-demand answer from your intuition to be able to know what to do. Like, what do you do when you're in a high-stakes meeting with you know, potential client or whatever, or you're running a company, or, you know, you get fired or something, and now you have to like make the next decision really quickly. You know, if you're waiting for the inspirational hit, it might come, it might not, but you still need to make that decision. So when you learn how to tune into intuition in a more scientific and precise way, and develop those capacities in your body, this is part of what we do, is we train people to like build up the parts of their physical, their mental and emotional functioning so that they can actually like feel and tune into this all the time. Then you have like this compass, you have this like magic compass, right? From like a fairy tale or something, you know.
Yes.
It's always guiding you towards where you need to be. And so, and then also too, things are really nonlinear. I think something you said about this before, you know, following your bliss, it's really nonlinear. So sometimes it messes with people because, you know, all their conditioning or programming tells them that they need to do X to be successful. But intuition is like, no, you actually need to go to the beach and maybe drink some margaritas so that you can run into this person who you didn't know was going to be there, that has the opportunity that's going to open the next chapter of your life, you know? So it's triangulating all these dynamics of it and really learning to kind of follow it and track it in real time.
But there's also another piece that you said that's important to note. You mentioned something about, you know, you're waiting and it's not working. And so often when we think things are not working, they actually are. But like Justin said, it's in a nonlinear way. So the way that we actually met was I ended up in the hospital in Santa Barbara. And, you know, I was just passing through and I was going to meet up with him for lunch or dinner or something. And we were going to see where the synergy was. But, you know, life had other plans for me. And I ended up in the emergency room and then hospitalized for 5 days, which at the time seemed like, wow, you know, why is this happening to me? This is so painful. I'm scared. And, you know, it could be easy to look at that situation and say, well, life is not working. But, the reality was he came to visit every day, and there was such synergy in what we were doing. We're like, whoa, we need to build this out and work together. So, it's those moments where sometimes we can't see that far into the future. Hindsight is 20/20, but it's like sometimes when we think things aren't working, they actually are.
Again, I have a big cheesy grin on my face because I recently landed a book deal, and it had taken, I was very stressed out. The whole situation had taken way longer than I hoped it would. I was constantly checking with my agent, and there was all these different things. He was like, not yet, not yet. This is happening. He was away. I was just caused me immense stress because I want everything to happen now. And actually the imprint that I signed with didn't exist until a month ago. It's a new division of Simon & Schuster, which is ideally suited to the book and what I'm doing. And so if my agent hadn't have taken the time he'd have taken, that imprint wouldn't have existed. And so it's just such a funny lesson for me on timing and just knowing that things are going to happen when they're supposed to happen. And like, I could have just saved myself all this stress. Right. And I still went and did the work. I was still like doing interviews. I was still following up. Like I was still doing it, but I didn't have to be suffering that whole time and like losing my mind. So yeah.
Absolutely. That's such a beautiful example, and congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you. Yeah. So yeah, it's brilliant. So tell us about the FlowConsciousness Institute and your work. Is it in person or is it all online? What do you guys do with that?
Yeah, we do both. So the Institute, we basically do research into how reality works, how our minds work, how our consciousness works, how reality works, and then take that, instead of it being really like abstract academic stuff, we say, okay, how do we apply this in our lives to improve the quality of our lives, to make us more successful, happier, healthier, etc., and develop trainings around that. So we do them both in person and online, so people can, if you're all the way across the world and nowhere near what we're doing, great. Or if it's convenient for you, you can do it at your own pace online with the group. We do live calls and everything. And then we also do things in person. We travel quite a bit. And so they tend to pop up wherever we're going, or we bring people here to Santa Barbara with us and create magic here.
Yeah, we've had the pleasure of sharing this work in 17 countries or so now. And our students are from something like 40 countries. So from Azerbaijan to El Salvador, all over Europe, Australia, kind of everywhere. So it's been really organically spreading in such a beautiful way.
That's exciting. Can you tell us about your sort of your main course, the Flow Mastery course, which is an online one, I believe?
Yeah, so Flow Mastery it's our core training. It's an 8-week online training, and it goes into a lot of what we've been talking about here. So the first 2 modules are deep reprogramming at the mental, emotional, energetic, and physical level of limiting beliefs, emotional patterns, traumas. That's the inner flow aspect of it. And the other 6 modules dive deep into all of the different flow principles, and they're all filled with practical tools, exercises, different mindsets and things to really rewire your consciousness to get you into the place where you're experiencing, what we call the hallmarks of flow, which are kind of this exponential growth in all areas of your life, this sense of equanimity and inner peace, learning to radically trust life. Life really starts to feel even magical and like it's conspiring in your favor, and you have synchronicities all the time, and just these fortuitous meetings with people and the exact resources you need just seem to show up. So it's a really powerful program. And like I said, we've got students all over the world, and it's just awesome.
It sounds awesome. And so for anyone listening or watching this, if this whole interview has sparked your interest, Jackie and Justin have offered to give away a spot on their core program. So please sign up for that, because it sounds absolutely incredible. And it's a great way to kind of just get going with this work. Because I think for some people, it might sound so unusual or far out there, depending on where you're at. And so just to have that opportunity to get the results for yourself, I think would be humongous. So thank you for offering that. Justin, you'd mentioned the Institute sort of does the science behind things. What are some, if there's a way that you can explain it in not too much of a complicated way, what are some scientific discoveries that you found about this work and sort of how it's changing lives and helping people?
Discoveries are kind of, I think the most interesting aspect is kind of, there's 2 parts of it. So we published some research a few years ago that really breaks down like the different ways that we actually interact with and create our reality, whether we're aware of it or not. So I think that's really fascinating. That's definitely something that's pioneering to what we do and unique, really mapping out the granular mechanics of how our beliefs actually create our lives on 3 different levels, both our internal experience, our external experience, and on a quantum level. And we have a research paper on the Institute website that anybody can access for free that goes into that and kind of ties it into our journey as we grow through different phases of our life and what that means and how you can use it to create more abundance and success and fulfillment and spiritual growth and so on. And then another really interesting aspect too that we're pioneering is really the dynamics of intuition, really mapping this to a degree that hasn't been mapped before and really understanding how it flows through us and how we receive it. You know, you were talking about instead of thinking and doing and making it happen, how do we listen to this supercomputer aspect of ourselves and get guidance from that? And so that hasn't really been done before. So by mapping the mechanics of it, we can learn how to strengthen it really fast and take it from this kind of esoteric skill that strikes once in a blue moon to making it as reliable as our rational, logical planning mind, and then using that as the foundation for our life, which is what nature operates on and produces all these really amazing things that we seem to have trouble with as humans.
I want to be that superpower intuition tapped in like that. Yes.
You totally have the capacity. Everyone does. Yeah. We're wired that way. It's our fundamental biological wiring. We come into the world with these tools and these gifts, and then it's just conditioned and programmed out of us because as kids, some adult said to you, they denied your experience when you said you were feeling something. And, so we learned not to operate from that. And we're taught to think things through and plan and make to-do lists and be really hyper rational. And, we all have this innate ability. So it's about kind of relearning how to access it and tap into it.
And I ask these questions when I sort of have conversations with people that do the work that you do. I sometimes am a bit conflicted between I still do have a belief that having goals or aspirations or ideas or visualizing the type of life I want and being able to manifest my reality. So on one side there's that, and then on the other side there's this just going with what's being sort of the vision or the direction that I feel like I'm being directed in. How do you because it's I guess it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I guess it can be a combination, but how do you see it? Do you guys have is there a place that you want to take your business to, or do you not think about that and it's just where the flow is? How would you help me with that?
That's a great question.
Yeah. So here's an interesting thing about flow. It's a paradox. Flow is the integration of polarities and dualities, right? So if you look the book, The Tao Te Ching, right? One of the messages in that book is describing the opposite side of everything it describes. And so it's really confusing to a lot of people, but what it's trying to point to is it's the middle path. It's the way it synthesizes both where you're going to get the maximum effect. So it's both about surrendering and about setting goals, because but the thing is that you don't set goals from your mind, you set goals from your intuition. Mm-hmm. So you learn how your intuition speaks and you learn to set goals that are in alignment with what your intuition's telling you. And then that's the sweet spot, because then it's not about hustling and grinding and making it happen. It's about following the path of least resistance and surrendering when it's appropriate to surrender and taking action when it's appropriate to take action. You just have to know what tool to use at which time.
And it's also a big part of it is recognizing where those goals are coming from, because so often our goals are coming from a place of, if I achieve this, then I'll finally be good enough, or I'll finally be worthy, or I'll finally get love. Mm-hmm. So it's healing those places where, our goals are created from wounding, and, it's coming from just the sheer joy of creating while being able to detach from the actual achieving of the goal. Because so often, sometimes it's just the journey to get there that we end up, we have this idea to write a book or something, and we start working on the book, but then it takes us into a completely different direction and puts us in a different position in space and time, and, sends us off on a different path. So it's not necessarily about achieving the goal. So it's about detaching from the outcome, and at the same time, really pouring your vision, your intention, and actively, we've broken down the mechanics of how you're creating your reality at this quantum level. So really putting your consciousness, your attention, your intention into the creation of this possibility, but without being attached to achieving it.
Yes, yes. I think back to when I was younger and up until maybe like, I don't know, 5 years ago, wanting to be famous. And then what I'm realizing that all that came down to was loneliness, wanting to be accepted or seen or appreciated, or just lonely, all these things. And it was really terrible. And then when I wasn't becoming famous, again, there was all this immense suffering. And now it's sort of, I definitely don't care about that. And it's just about acting because I love it. And when I'm not doing it, I miss it immensely, and just sort of just doing it for the love of it, which is great. Like, and I'm most of the time I'm auditioning, I'm not even getting the work anyway. And I have a great time auditioning. So it's just.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And ironically, when you're operating from that place, that's usually when those goals are fulfilled.
Right.
Because you're not attached and you're not in the suffering of trying to make it happen. And
Right.
then the thing that you actually want tends to just show up.
Right. And again, it's a timing thing, because now, I do these tapes and I don't hear anything, or sometimes I get some good feedback or whatever. And I have a belief now that it's going to happen when it happens and when the time's right. And so I'm just going to enjoy myself until it decides that it wants to happen.
I mean, I think you're already famous. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thanks.
So,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. It's fantastic stuff. Thank you both so much for your time today. I love this topic, and I just think the work you're doing is incredible, and just bringing so much rich. You're making people magicians of their own lives. Like, it's fantastic.
That's sometimes when people ask what I do, I say I'm a magician, because exactly that. But yeah,
that's
and it's fun.
Yes. Can you just imagine if everyone just knew? If everyone just knew this, just even hearing it gives me hope and makes me feel good.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a choice collectively. We're a lot of us are telling old stories of suffering, but it's like we could be equally as easily telling stories of joy and love.
And that's why I so appreciate the work that you're doing, because it's combating this constantly negative news that we're being fed, and so the content that you're bringing to people is actively shifting into this new paradigm. So
thank you. I started watching The Handmaid's Tale the other day, and it was incredibly distressing for me. And I immediately started to feel anxious, and especially with what's going on with the South and like the rights of women being taken away. I couldn't handle it. And so I'm just very aware that there's a lot of people that are just unconsciously watching all this stuff, consuming all this stuff, and it's having such a profound impact on our mental well-being and on our beliefs and mindset. So definitely encourage people to just shift their attention from time to time on slightly more uplifting content.
Yeah,
totally.
Well, thank you both. And thanks for offering to give away a spot on the course. Please sign up for that. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. FlowMastery.com, FlowConsciousness Institute. FlowConsciousness Institute is everything we do in one place. And then FlowMastery.com or Flow-Mastery.com is the website for our specific core training. So,
fabulous. We'll keep all of those links in the show notes, and I'll also have your personal websites on there as well.
Beautiful.
Jackie, Justin, thank you so much for joining me today. And I will see, or you'll hear from me all next week. Bye.
Such a pleasure.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.